And we're live.
Hello and welcome back. Today I'm going to do a demonstration using soft pastels and pastel pencils. Now these are things I don't use very often. It's not something, it's one of my favourite mediums, but I like to swap and change just because it gives me a different feel for materials, and if I avoid it too long, you kind of will keep avoiding it. So pastel is not something I'm keen on doing, but it doesn't mean I don't enjoy doing it. So what I'm using is a Pastelmat paper. Now Pastelmat is a really lovely surface. This is the anthracite pad, so it's all this colour. And anthracite is this motley colour. It gives you a good, nice background that I don't have to cover. I can use the background as part of the drawing or painting. I think we've had this discussion before, whether it's a pastel painting or a pastel drawing. I think the term states that it's a drawing if the background isn't fully covered, but if you cover the whole of the surface of the paper with pastel, it becomes a painting. But whatever. I'm going to call it a pastel drawing because I'm using pastel pencils. Chosen to use Snowdrops because they've been coming out for a few weeks and they're quite an interesting little plant. First thing I'm going to do on this Pastelmat paper, which, like I was saying, is very grippy, but also feels quite smooth. So it's one of the new papers, new I mean fairly recent papers, that offers you the grip and you don't need to really fix it because it's gripped to the surface, and you'll see as I use it. So a soft pastel, I'm just going to put it on using the side because I like the shapes it makes as well as the coverage. And I'm going to look at the stems and maybe add or subtract what I've already put on. I'll just see what happens or how it happens and see what it finishes like, how the composition works, because I want to make sure every stem makes sense. Okay, so it's quite light in the middle here. So I'm looking at the lightest areas, just plotting and planning.
Oh, Anita.
Yes.
Sorry, technically your microphone's rubbing on your. Yeah, there we go. Try that.
It won't stay, you know.
That's okay. That's good.
Okay. So, like I say, just putting down a layer. And the thing with pastels is a lot of it is about layering. I'm not going to blend with my fingers. I'm going to use the pastels to blend themselves. Okay, and now I'm going to whack on some purple, just because I can. And actually, I can go, it may look a bit strong now, but I can go back over. So I'm going to use this purple as part of the shadow, and you'll see it will come together. And if it looks too harsh, I'll just take it back. And that's the great thing about pastel, you can go back and you layer. So pastel is a very instant colour medium. It's probably one of the strongest. You put the colour down and it's the strongest rather than watercolour or acrylic. It just gives you that instant colour. And you've got the blending. You don't mix the same way as you do with the watercolour, so that's why you have loads of different pastels, all with different shades and tints. And a pastel, I'm going to use yellow, will have a main colour, which is usually a tint 5, and then you'll get tints and shades, which means that there's added white or added black, and that's what changes the colour with pastel. So a colour like green will look green in its original shade, it's tint 5, but when you get up to, is it 8, the highest with more white? No, it's the lower colours, so a lower colour, so a green tint too will be darker, but it can look very grey because you've added black, or a yellow. If you've added the black, it becomes a green. So that's why you get the same yellow with the different tints, and they look very different colours. So the higher the colour, I think it's more white. The lower the colour, the number, sorry, then there's more black in it. And that can really alter some colours. Just adding, again, I'm slightly plotting, because I'm not sure. I'm just making doubly sure that I know where the leaves are going, because that's got its leaf back there. And I've got the original, but it doesn't mean I'm going to completely follow it. I'll probably make up a little bit, depending on how I feel and how it looks. So, you know, when you take pictures of snowdrops, will be a lot of detail in there. There'll be all the grass and the other leaves and plants around it. What you have to do is just look and see if you can take from it into a drawing. You don't have to do every little detail. So just adding another colour, that will do, that's fine. And at the moment it looks at that messy stage. Someone was saying in their progression of a drawing, it's at the messy stage, and that's exactly what it is. It's at that messy stage you think, oh, it's never going to look anything. And as you work, it starts to pull itself together. But the messy stage is that frustrating stage where you think, ugh, don't know where it's going, don't know what's happening. I'll put a leaf there, but where is it going? Okay, that's a big one, yeah. Like I say, I'm going to think about alter and change as I go along. So there's one coming behind here, and then there's a small one here. So I was noting, I'm going to put one across here just to add a little bit of balance here, and I'll see how that works. I've got facts about snowdrops. So the snowdrop is a small flowering plant which flowers between about January and March. And I was surprised to discover that it's actually not native to the UK. So we have them in the UK, but I think they were brought over sometime before the 1600s. So they're not actually native, they're more of an alpine flower, but were brought over. Not sure why, but their bulbs are poisonous. And they do look like a shallot. So they may have been eaten inadvertently, which is why one of their myths behind them is if you bring a single snowdrop into the house, it's a harbinger of doom or death. But that could well be due to the bulb. But they're also used in medicine. They find that the chemicals that's produced by the flower can help with memory. So Alzheimer's or any of those kind of diseases can be helped with using the snowdrop. So it also has symbolism of hope and purity, and you can see that. It's because it's that little white flower that pushes up through the snow and, you know, is there in the cold, harshest weathers. Now what I've done, this is a Chinese white, so you can see the difference in the white. It's more of a grey white, mainly because of the background, not because of the colour in here, but I'm always having to take into consideration the background. Putting most pastels on are quite opaque, but it will affect, the background will affect some colours. So at the moment, I'm just sharpening, muting, and I like that purple. Yes, there isn't a harsh amount of purple in the flower, but it's my drawing. I like seeing the colour come through, and I can change it. So just what I'm having to do is also, I'm a devil for leaning on my work. So I'm trying to really carefully think about working this way down. As much as I'm really tempted to work on this area, I'm actually being quite considerate about where I'm working. What I'm using here is crystal paper, often called glycine paper in US. What it is it's a purpose. It's a bit like the greaseproof paper, but it's actually less static. So it's absolutely perfect for pastels. Not only for doing this, like I'm leaning and I'm not going to be smudging, but also for protecting. So this pad actually has a sheet of glycine crystal paper between each sheet. So when you put the pad together, it protects it. And that's, someone asked me the other day, how do I protect a pastel drawing? And use glycine between pieces of card and bulldog clips. It really does work. Because I don't like fixing pastel, it really does help protect a pastel piece, unless you're framing it. And then there's lots of great ways to frame a pastel. Now, these kind of papers are really good because they've gripped your pastel, and you're not going to lose too much. Not much is going to dust off. But use a triple mount, or it's called we call them gutter mounts at the SAA, and that looks like a single mount, but has a hidden mount underneath. What it does is it takes the surface away with the two mounts like that. Can you see that? Yeah. So this is the top mount you see, and then underneath there's a mount, and what it does is it allows any pastel to drop beneath and not contaminate the mount on top. And again, you can just use the gutter mounts with a piece of card, crystal paper, for travelling or even sending through the post, so you don't have to have it framed, and allow the person who's receiving it to frame it, so you don't have the worries of glass going through. But the gutter mount helps any pastel drop into this hidden well beneath. So that's just a way of protecting, storing and sending any pastels. So I'm going to move on and start with the greens. Now, what I will have is a load of greens in my hand and yellow. And I'll end up with a whole fistful of colours, which just helps me see what colours I want to grab next. So the pastel, the soft pastels, they're much softer. They're great for putting down colour quickly. Pastel pencils, they work nicely on this surface, and I'm going to use them for blending. So into this colour, it's going to blend and not be as harsh a green and still show the yellow. But on some papers, they're not quite as easy to use. It depends on the paper. So again, test it and work with it. I know on velour, that furry paper, pastel pencils aren't great for that first layer. I'm just wondering where that one is going. Let's put it down here. So Snowdrops, what else can I tell you about Snowdrops? Gary and I were talking about the genus, and I've completely forgotten it. It's
go on, go for it.
Something.
Galanthus nivalis.
Galanthus nivalis. I know that means milk flower of the frost or snow. And actually Snowdrops talked about their bulbs being poisonous. They don't usually spread by pollination. Because of the season that they come up, bees aren't awake. They're a bit sleepy. If the temperature gets over 10 degrees, apparently bees can wake up and do start to buzz around the flowers. I'm going to do something that people don't always like, but it's I'm blowing it away. So blowing pastels, I could dust it, but I tend to smudge off. So if I do a quick sharp blow away, it shouldn't affect you in any way. So where was I? Forgotten.
The pollination. The bees.
Yeah, pollination. So if the temperature drops below 10 degrees, bees can wake up and pollinate that way. But snowdrops pollinate by splitting their bulbs that way, and so they grow underneath and their bulbs split, so it's not really a pollinating flower. But they are tough. The ends, the tips here, are reinforced so that they can push through the snow. Blending with a pencil, so that's just blending with pencil. And I'll put more colours and I'll take it back and also look at some light and shade a little bit more. And again, I know I do research just so I got things to tell you, but it's also important because when I was doing this, these are my images I've taken, I don't know, last year. But you can't see the workings of the flower or the leaves or the plants that way. And what I do know is the stem goes down and it usually has two leaves which are reinforced, these strong reinforced leaves, two and sometimes three. So with that, I know that now, so that will help me think about what I'm showing with the leaves. Am I showing this leaf, this stem here has two coming out? So little things like that and a little bit of research actually will help with your drawing. Same with knowing how many points there is on a certain leaf or characteristics of an animal. All those little things. So I've obviously got one here, but I'm not sure where it's going. So with this, I'm actually kind of sorting myself out, trying to think about the leaves, where they're going. Right. Let's put one here. Add the yellow one. Is it making sense? Is the whole story making sense? Especially when it's very busy. And I don't want to make it over busy either. So again, that's another thing I'm thinking about. I'm going to use the yellow to shape. So I've looked at the flowers, the stems. I know the shape. I realise that they've got tough reinforced ends and they're that small green point of a leaf. And all those kind of things is something you consider. Okay.
Anita?
Yes.
Chrissy, who's one of our regulars watching in Australia, says it's looking great already.
Thank you. You got past that, what was it? What did I call it? Ugly stage. And yes, it's starting to come together, but there's still loads to do. There's lots of layers and depth and shadow to put on. But yeah, I like working with the mix of the pencil and the pastel because it just gives me that control. So this flower has that. Didn't read about what that was, this bit, but it's obviously a characteristic of the snowdrops, so just make sure that you show it. You don't have to show it on every flower, but just make sure it's where it just really makes the flower look like what it's supposed to. And I'm not one for detail. If I had the chance, I'd splatter and do all that on it. But with pastels, you can be expressive. You can use the side and really go, and I might do that a little bit at the bottom, it depends. But this love stage it's quite nice. It's because it starts to pull together you've gone past that ugly stage, that where am I going with this? You know, does it look right? What's it meaning? And now it just starts to make sense. And I think that is important in painting. It makes sense. Let's put a leaf tip here because it looks like there's a leaf going down here. So this comes down. So I'm just constantly. So this must have leaves because what you're seeing is obviously the ground. So I know that there must be 2 leaves coming off, so I'll use that one. And I'm going to have another one coming up here. So, like I say, from the original, this was all lost. I couldn't see the individual leaves, but as I'm drawing, it's starting to make sense. I just need to make a little bit more sense of it. Back in with the soft pastel to lighten, to actually highlight that this leaf is before the ones.
Anita?
Yes.
Another question.
Yes.
From Chrissy again in Australia.
Hello.
She wants to know what you think of these Derwent pastel pencils. She finds them a bit scratchy, but she likes the colour range.
To be honest, I'm not thinking about which pencils I'm using, and if you notice, I've got both Derwent and Faber Pastel in my hand. I think the Fabers are a little bit softer, but I'm doing it from the colour range, like you say. They've got a fabulous colour range, and that's what I'm just picking up the colours from. The scratchiness, it depends. If you're using them all the time just as on their own, I can see that possibly is a problem. But for me, that slightly hardness as opposed to scratchiness just gives me a chance to use them a little bit more delicately. And on this surface, the pastels tend to wear down quite quickly. So that slightly harder core just means that these don't wear down quite as quickly. Right. And I've only got the ones that I had at hand, so I would have liked a darker green, but I'll make do with the blue. Right, what I'm going to do is, because I'm a little confused about the area here, I'm going to take a short break. We'll come back, and that will give me a chance to look at the original and to decide what areas are a bit messy or don't make sense. So join me in a minute.
Let us bring out the artist in you. If you'd like to learn how to paint or improve your painting, the SAA is here to inform, encourage, and inspire you every step of the way. When you become an SAA member, you get so many benefits, including the free bi-monthly newsletter Paint, packed with inspiring step-by-step projects, fascinating articles, and detailed information to get your creative juices flowing. Discounts on over 13,000 art products featured on the SAA website and in the Home Shop catalogue, with free order line and free delivery in the UK mainland. A devoted SAA team on hand to answer your questions and give you the confidence and motivation you need to start painting and develop at a pace that suits you. Plus, a free welcome pack filled with gifts and practical help to get you started, as well as the opportunity to make friends with like-minded people.
Best thing to be a MAP member is the inspiration from the magazines, to be able to purchase things at a very reasonable price.
Yeah, you get the reduction on all the materials, the advice you get.
I could shop from home.
It's a community.
It seemed like a very friendly sort of organisation.
If somebody's thinking of joining, don't spend too long thinking. Just join. They'll love it.
Hello and welcome back. So I've had a chance to look, and like I do say, walk away, have a break from it at this stage, and then you can start to think and decide what you need to do. So now I'm going to start to just define some of the darker areas that I can see and maybe lose some of this white.
Sorry,
yes,
I'm interrupting again, Anna. We had a couple of messages come in during the break Douglas says it's really nice, it's looking great.
Thank you, Douglas.
Chrissy loves the Faber Pastel pencils.
Good. Yeah, like I say, they are slightly softer. I don't mind. That's why I've got a handful of different ones. There's another
Oh, and Douglas
one.
says he finds the Derwent ones a bit more powdery than the Faber ones, but they're great on the side. They give great coverage.
Yeah, yeah. So each. I mean, these are made in the UK. These are made in France. They're made at different companies, so they will be different. And it's what you prefer. You may find that you find like a Derwent one for certain areas and the Faber for another. They are that little bit softer, but you know it may not be. You're looking for a soft one. You'll be looking for that harder one that keeps the point. And I will talk about sharpening as we go on, because this is the bugbear of most pastel artists, is how do you sharpen your pastel pencils. Now, one answer is very slowly and carefully, and there are tools out there. Just going in with the grey. So you can see now I'm just starting to fill. I'm just going to try and get rid of this. And I'm using this grey specifically because it matches the anthracite colour, so it kind of ties in. Just soften that a little bit. I want to get rid of the... I used a white pencil to sketch out, and it's just still visible in some areas. That's easy enough to solve. So that much lighter in a bit. Let's see if I can catch the light. Now I know this soft pastel is the whitest bit, so that's what I'm going to just use just to catch maybe a touch of light. Okay, let's work down. I like the anthracite colour of this Pastelmat because it just gives me that background that I don't have to think about. It just gives me a lovely dark background.
Sorry. Me again.
That's okay.
I've been doing a bit of research.
Okay.
Been multitasking. That little bit that you're doing now that you didn't know the name of it.
Yeah.
It's called the spade.
The spade. What's it for?
I don't know.
Okay. Do you want to do some more research?
Oh,
No.
what?
No, I like to know. Like I say, it's just additional information and you don't need to do it. But for me, it just is part of understanding the makeup of the... Okay, so this is going to be darker underneath. So again, I'm thinking about darkening, lightening, and it's much sharper going in. So I need to... I mean, these are just tiny details that, for me, I just want to get it a little bit... So the colours aren't exactly the same. Again, a quick blow away. I'm going to use the white just to... You can see that, how much easier. These are softer. These are the SAA pastels, and they are towards the harder range of soft pastels, but they're still a soft pastel, and they still give you that great coverage and ability just to put your colour down on. And pastels, I think, are a great beginner medium. It just gives you that chance to not have to worry about using a brush, because you're using something like a tool that you're familiar with, a pencil. And, you know, you get your cover down quickly. Don't want to... That's coming. So, like I say, I'm not blending with my fingers. I have seen great artists like Jeremy Ford, and he will blend with his fingers, and I don't know how he's still got fingers left, to be honest. And you'll see I'm holding them all just so I've got them instantly at hand. Got some much yellower on this side. It's all to do with the light. Catch the... Some nice light areas in here, but it's not totally light. I might green it down a little bit. So the initial layer of the white is there, but I just need to use the blue. Now this blue, I think must be a phthalo, yes, or Prussian blue, so it will have phthalo in it. It's very strong. But blue, yellow, they make a green. And let's move down. And I'm going to finish with the highlights on the Snowdrops at the end, because I think that's just going to give me my lightest lights, which is obviously the colour in the Snowdrop. Just making sure everything touches, makes sense. Let's add some light at the top and tip of light on there. So this is going to be quite very samey, so this isn't going to take too long. I'm going to use the blue to darken and shape. There's a gap there. I'm not sure I like that gap, so I will fix it and let's do just a little leaf here. Don't mind the gap here, that works, but that just didn't work for me. So you can see how even as you're going through, you can alter, you can adapt, you can move. I don't think a drawing's ever really finished until it's taken out of your hands and has gone away, because you'll always come back and look and think, oh yeah, just that bit, which is why you need to step away sometimes, because you can get really obsessed with constantly altering things, and actually you can alter things too far when they were actually pretty good in the first place. And I'm sure many artists understand this, the struggle of whether it's finished or not. I want to use that last. I've got my pencils round all different ways, which isn't completely helping. Very light touch with this, because I can feel it's a very strong colour. What I want to do, especially with the leaves, is to show their crisp sharpness around the edge. So any fuzzy edges I'm going to kind of sharpen. And I don't want to darken all because I want some depth. Now this is empty in here, which it wouldn't be. I think it would be, let's fill that in, take that up here. Might explain what that was. Go. And you can keep going, and you can, what I don't want to do is overload with too much detail. But just constantly thinking about what makes sense. So on here I've lost the tip of this. That's easy enough, I can take it back. Okay, so this will be getting darker behind here. No, it's not the colour I want. Let me turn them round so they're all... If I put them on the table, I'm going to drop them and they're all going to roll away. This is why I tend to have them in my hand, but it's also, I'm able to pick up the colour I want straight away. And I'm probably over fiddling with these colours. Right, reinforced tip to push through the snow, I'm sure I've mentioned that. So great work. Darken. I'm using a kind of a swirly motion there just to blend. Just gently, softly blend. I want to darken a little bit. And this colour it's a French grey dark, but you'll see Because I'm fiddling, I'm just going to do this. You'll see how very close it is to the anthracite. And how I can kind of push this colour in so it kind of all harmonises with the colours of the surface. And just doing that has, for me, from what I can see, has just made that a less stark greens. And it kind of adds that bit of depth and character. Right. Oh no, look here.
No, look how smudgy you've got.
That's because I wasn't leaning on my crystal paper. That's not a problem. Completely not a problem. Don't know what that is. So, I'm going to take it away. I've got different erasers. Some work better than others. Right. Kneadable eraser. That's told you I'd be smudgy. That's just what I am. But this is great. It's kneadable eraser. What you can do is you can lift it all off. Rather than being very harsh with the harsh plastic eraser, which works because Pastelmat is such a tough paper. You can actually wash it off, to be honest. I have done that in the past. You just get a wash and you take it off. You may not take it off completely, but you can take it off enough that it's clean, that you can go back over. So with a putty rubber or kneadable eraser, some are softer than others. This is again the Faber Pastel. I like this one because it's very soft and very kneadable. And you use it by dabbing instead of rubbing into the paper. So I'm not pushing the colour into the surface. I'm lifting it off the loose colour. Better. Look, less stickiness around, less smudging. That's worked quite well. And I can just take off any of the soft, see there, any of the excess dust which pastels will make. And it's self-cleaning, so keep kneading it into itself and it will clean. Right, that's not so smudgy now, but how am I going to lean? Look, Gary, remembering to lean. Right, this makes sense. So there must be a leaf here that comes down here. And it comes down to here. So just making sense of things. I want to take that further because there was quite a blank area here. Don't know what that's doing. Let's make it do something. Let's put another smaller. Okay, cool, that's working. Because not all of these relate to the leaves of the, stop that there, of the flower. They can be grass, they can be different types of leaves. So I'm in that mix of, I want some detail but not too much. And I probably won't finish it now. What I'll do is I'll do what I'm fairly happy with and it looks okay for you. Leave it, and then by coming back I can add bits and see where maybe I need a little bit more depth and detail, which when you're doing live you can't always see because you're focused on so much of the picture that you can lose all those little details.
Anita,
yes.
You mentioned sharpening earlier.
Yes, sharpening.
Chris has been asking about
Okay.
how you get them sharp.
So sharpening, sharpen this one. I actually found this is a pastel pencil and this is a normal sharpener. Now, as long as it's new and this blade is very sharp, I think.
If you do it over your
Over here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, can you see?
No, over the bit up a bit. Yeah, yeah, somewhere there. Yeah. That
Okay,
bit.
so actually this does work. What you have to be is very slow and careful. So you can see there. Or this is a fantastic sharpener.
If you move it towards you a little bit into that space.
Yeah, it's a way. Now, again, you have to be slow and careful because it's pastel. The core is soft. And I have had pencils and you just don't get them sharpened at all because they've been dropped. And if they're dropped through the core, it's going to keep breaking. But I do this very slowly. Occasionally I'll put a graphite pencil in because that cleans the blade. Oops, see that one's broken. Easy to change. I have my trusty. But I have sharpened most of these with this. It's a pastel pencil. It will clog up any sharpener. But this gives you a lovely fine point. Which one was I doing? Let's get this one. Slowly. Just respecting that it's a, and I'll keep checking. Just because I don't want, if you push it in too far. And this is pulling itself in. I'm just holding it like this because it's not stuck to the table. Yes. So you can see that, and yeah, I can get it a much finer point, but when pencils are getting small, I can't guarantee that I haven't dropped them everywhere. So you can see there, and this is great. It doesn't wear down, so you've always got that sharp metal sharpener inside the what's it called? The helixical.
Yeah.
And it's a really good, great for other pencils as well. And like I say, I do a graphite every now and then in between because it cleans it. Graphite is a cleaning medium. So, like I say, I've actually got points like that from this sharpener. But it's the blade. As long as your blade is sharp and you do it slowly, you should get a point. But it's such a soft core, you know, it's often hit and miss with sharpening. So, and I know we use these at workshops with pastel pencils, and they can do a lot really quickly and very successfully. So, you know, or you go back to your traditional knife and blade and sharpen that way. But you can often tell if...
Sorry, I'm interrupting you. I was trying to wait for you to stop, but you didn't stop. We have another question.
Yes.
About the Derwent pencils.
Yeah.
This person's got some old ones.
Yeah.
And they're quite scratchy, but they heard there was a formula change in about 2010 and they're smoother now.
I can't say that. I think they did change, and I think I've got some of the older ones. I would guess I've got older ones. But I would guess, yes, they do change formulas because technology is so readily available. They can move and adapt and create things which are better. And they know what people are looking for more now. So Derwent make pencils. That is their job. They make all different types of pencils, and they're regularly updating and changing slightly to improve on what their customers are asking for. So I can't say, because to be honest, I don't think I would notice unless I was specifically looking for it. But yeah, I would say they possibly have updated their formulas for that softer pastel that people are looking for. Right. So that's a lot darker. And you'll see this, how this blue can, and I'm keeping the blue a little bit. What I'm also doing is with the stem, I know that the grain is going up like this. So I'm keeping my pencil drawing in that direction for now, because it just helps create lines and marks which help kind of make that look more realistic. So the veins and the lines, that got a bit fat there, so I'm just taking it back. And this pastel mat will take so much rubbing and scraping and going back into and layering. If your pencils start to stop layering, it's because you've got a lot of pastel. So the paper itself is very grippy. If you've got a lot of pastel and a lot of pastel on pastel, it starts to lose maybe a little bit of layering availability, but you know, you probably have enough layers on by then anyway. And you can see here, if I push quite hard, especially with a white I use quite a lot, not just for the white, but as a blending colour. I'm going to have to blow. So see here, the area is quite samey. So I'm just thinking about darkening without using a black and making it very dark. Pushing leaves forward, pulling them back. And like I said, I'm not going to get it all finished, but hopefully you'll get a good idea of what can be done. That's how pencils get difficult to sharpen. Right. This makes no sense in the middle here, so let me try and think about it. Okay, so there's a stem going up there. Okay, so it's going to be darker because it's behind. So in with the grey. See, that suddenly pushed that leaf forward, and because of the colour I've used, it really does harmonise with. Don't get what's going on here either. So let's push that back. Okay, I'm starting to fiddle, and I know there's areas here that I want to fix, but I want to be able to get this finished in a timely fashion. So just using the soft pastel to pick out highlights. That was in the wrong place, but I can fix that. I'm more clumsy with this softer pastel, but actually sometimes that can be quite interesting. Right. That doesn't make sense either, so let's just fix that. And the more leaves you've got, the quicker it is to give them a structure. Didn't like that, so blend that out. Shape. Okay, let's go in and bring out these much whiter areas. I'm going to try and be careful is not to lose the shape. Take back. I'm going to add some blue. That's nice. So the purple and the blue both work. And again, now I can blend and soften, but I don't want to lose. So nice sharp edge with this one that's gone over. So they look a delicate flower, but actually they're quite solid. 3 leaves inside, but nice round sharp lit edge. break, catch the light there. And actually this is catching the light under there, but it doesn't make a complete sense. So the softer, less opaque colour white I'm using for shadow. And maybe just sharpening, because they have a very clean line, and that's really nice and clean now. Okay, let's finish with this one. Yeah, look at that. I might leave that without messing too much, because that's a nice clean. See the veins that go up, and they go up the leaf. I'm not going to mess too much with that one. What I'm going to do is, I notice you get slightly greener areas. So white is more than just white. There's so many other colours that you can get into white and still let it stay white, if you know what I mean. I know that makes no sense at all. Now those colours look a bit garish at the moment, so slightly take them down. I don't want to lose them. I just want to take a little away. And actually, I like that mark by using the pastel on the side. So I was also going to just add a bit of texture. Skip a make mark. It's not flat enough. Let's choose a flatter one. I want an edge. That's it. Look at the way you can just make marks with the pastel. I know this isn't a colour which is in.
Purple, that's just
I know,
crazy.
it's just totally crazy, but it kind of ties it all together. And, you know, just showing that you don't have to. It's surprising what colours you can actually use in a piece that you wouldn't even think about. And I don't think it's gone totally off kilter with adding purple. Okay, I'm just fiddling now. So I'm just going to finish off by tidying up with the kneadable eraser and maybe the harsher sharpeners. Like this is one of my favourite, the nice mono Tombow, because it will just get me in. What you have to be careful is when you then brush it off, you don't go back over. See how you can clean up. I was also trying with water, using a brush to clean it up when it got too messy, because it takes everything. You do a wet wash on this. Right, need a brush, and I'm going to be careful so that I don't go back into the leaves while I dust off. Now, if I could lift this off, which I can't because it's taped down, I would pat it from the back and get the bits and pieces off that way. Oh no, I'm just going to bit of softening. Okay, that's it. I am really now fiddling. So I hope you enjoyed that, using Pastelmat, which I find is really wonderful for getting sharp as well as soft images. The anthracite colour is great because it's quite a neutral colour. Using the soft pastels, these are the SAA soft pastels, putting down layers, and maybe, because that white gives me that nice highlight, and mixing it with different pastel pencils. So both the Faber and the Derwent. Faber's slightly softer than the Derwent, but they have different colours in their range, and you get to work with them. You get to know which works best. So I hope you enjoyed that, and join me. I don't think it's next week, is it?
Yeah, we've got Vic workshop.
Yeah, we've got.
Next week,
So
and then I think we'll be back on Friday because the workshop's Wednesday. Oh no, but I'm not here. No.
that's what I'm saying. So join me in a couple of weeks, but join us at the SAA next week for a live workshop with Vic Beercraft, and again he'll be using pastels on a different surface, the velour surface. So join us then.